And another thing that Governor Tim Walz tried to do was directly blame Donald Trump for the border. He would say things like, JD, you're doing a good job, but the guy that you've decided to associate with, he's the reason that we're having this border issue. And then JD Vance replied with this: we have a historic immigration crisis because Kamala Harris started and said that she wanted to undo all of Donald Trump's border policies. 94 executive orders suspending deportation, decriminalizing illegal aliens, massively increasing the asylum fraud that exists in our system that has opened the floodgates. Why would they try to blame the border crisis on Donald Trump when even Democrats say, wow, this border crisis with fentanyl and illegals definitely happened under Kamala Harris?
Well, they don't really have any good options that are going to lead them to a victory on the issue, if you will, unless they come out and simply admit that they were wrong and promise to change course and say that Trump was right. And they're not going to do that. So they want it both ways, right? You'll hear the Democrats talk about how, now they've come back to levels that, were from many years ago, after letting in 20 million more or less illegals into this country. Now they kind of celebrate that, oh, well, now the border crossings are down. So what are you admitting, that actually you are capable of bringing those border crossings down and it was negligence or intent that you allowed it to go on as long as you did? So they want to try and pretend like they've got this under control, while at the same time, they can't very well do that. And so they're blaming it on Trump. And so it's an impossible situation. But, it's really offensive to those of us who have a couple of brain cells left to rub together between our ears when they bring up this pathetic border bill, which is the equivalent of that Inflation Reduction Act, which had nothing to do with inflation. It was a lie. It was a fraud. And it was a trick of the eye, if you will, to pull from the, French term. But that bill, of course, was going to legalize illegal immigration. And in that bill, too, the way they view Border Patrol, it's not to actually enforce the border or to prevent people from coming in. They want to repurpose them almost as like Red Cross humanitarian aids that are going to exist to help facilitate additional illegals coming in here. So it's such a joke that they bring up this bill. And of course, it's also true that, okay, even if this bill were amazing, why did it take you, 3 years to propose something like that? We're supposed to forgive all because you came to your sense after 20 million were allowed in. And one thing too, Stephen, that I think the American people saw last night as Walz struggled to grapple with this impossible situation with the border is that the Democrat Party basically took the side of illegals, and Walz took the side of illegals last night. And he said something that really bothers me, which of course is he claims that if you whether it's Haitian illegals or other illegals that have come in this country, if you point out the fact that they are destroying the country or the culture, which is true, it's objectively true, they say that you're going to get them hurt, that's bigoted and horrible. And yet the things that we're saying that are true about the illegal situation, which we have the right to say, they don't have a right to be here, and they are a drain on everything. We can't survive. No nation can survive with illegal immigration like this. They've said far worse about you or me or any sane person in this country or MAGA, comparing us to Hitler and Nazis. Nobody's saying that about the Haitians. And last time I checked, there haven't been 2 assassination attempts against any Haitian illegal in this country, but there have been 2 against Donald Trump. And so they want to silence our voices and shut us up about pointing out the biggest issue the Democrats face in this election, which is the illegal invasion of our border, by saying you can't say these things about the illegals. Meanwhile, these people haven't taken down their rhetoric a notch since 2 failed assassination attempts on Trump. I mean, the Commerce Secretary went on TV just the other day in the Biden administration and said that we need to, extinguish Trump.
Yeah. Well, even last night, CNN was interviewing Don Jr., and he brought up the fact that because of the mainstream media and their vile rhetoric, that he's had these attempts on Donald Trump's life. And I think her name's Caitlin over at CNN. She said there's no proof that the media contributed to that in any way. And he said, oh, calling him Hitler for 9 years didn't contribute to somebody going, I should probably take out Hitler. right? So it's like they're delusional about their contribution to this problem. Let me talk about making life more affordable. JD Vance hit on this many times. I felt like he really stuck it to Tim Walz. Let's react to that video together.
We bring those home. The issue is Donald Trump is talking about it. Kamala Harris has a record, 250,000 more manufacturing jobs just out of the IRA.
May I respond to that?
Yes.
So appreciate that. So if you notice what Governor Walz just did is he said, first of all, Donald Trump has to listen to the experts. And then when he acknowledged that the experts screwed up, he said, well, Donald Trump didn't do nearly as good of a job as the statistics
that's a gross generalization.
that he did. So what Tim Walz is doing, and I honestly, Tim, I think you got a tough job here because you've got to play whack-a-mole. You've got to pretend that Donald Trump didn't deliver rising take-home pay, which of course he did. You've got to pretend that Donald Trump didn't deliver lower inflation, which of course he did. And then you've simultaneously got to defend Kamala Harris's atrocious economic record, which has made gas, groceries, and housing unaffordable for American citizens. I was raised by a woman who would sometimes go into medical debt so that she could put food on the table in our household. I know what it's like to not be able to afford the things that you need to afford. We can do so much better. To all of you watching, we can get back to an America that's affordable again. We just got to get back to common sense economic principles. I hope.
All right. Just like you said earlier, masterclass. He divided him so good. He said, man, I feel bad for you, Tim Walz. You are stuck between having to admit that life was better under Donald Trump, that life was more affordable, that people could get food and housing. And then now you're stuck between that and Kamala Harris's disastrous economic policy of higher gas prices, higher grocery prices, and higher housing. Just a masterclass. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, one of the things that actually stuck out to me this time watching the clip, even though I watched the debate last night live, is that, JD Vance repeatedly talked about his background, and he's not a fraud. It's not only documented in his, memoir, but it's actually true as well about growing up in poverty. His mom addicted to substances, drugs, and he's the real deal. And it's interesting because the media is doing everything they can, and the candidates themselves, in terms of Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, to propagandists, liars, and frauds, they're trying so hard to relate to the American people, to make the American people think that they are, in fact, have JD Vance's story, right? Kamala Harris repeatedly lying about her upbringing. When she actually grew up in Canada in one of the wealthiest, if not the wealthiest neighborhoods in the country. And her parents, both of them had PhDs, and it's, a fraction of the population has parents that have two parents with PhDs. So none of that's true. She's not this middle-class kid, but JD Vance is relatable. He actually does understand through his own experience what the American people are suffering through. And it just reminds me how desperate the media is and the Democrat Party to lie about who they are and, of course, who their opponents are too. And JD Vance has a story that is inspiring to the American people, and he is what they want Kamala Harris and Tim Walz to be, but of course they are not those things.
Yeah. I read one time that the reason that the Democrats were so mad about his memoir, Hillbilly Elegy, was that it put a spotlight on the fact that there is poverty, a lot of poverty in the white community in America. And they don't want that. They want only the black community to have poverty issues, right? Because that they're trying to appeal to their voter base. Oh, we can't let people know that there are white people that have financial problems, right? And so, but you juxtapose that with, he grows up lower income family, and you have Kamala Harris that keeps saying, I'm middle class, I'm middle class. She grew up very wealthy. She grew up in one of the most posh neighborhoods in Canada, not in America, in Canada. And so just a difference. But again, coming back to like Mr. Walz, how do you change the mind of the American people that Donald Trump isn't going to work his guts out to make life more affordable, where your candidate, your running mate, has already made life extremely expensive? How is she going to do that? And she's already had an opportunity to change that, and she's refused to do it.